Today on AI Applied, we are talking Grok 3. So this is interesting. Jaden and I were talking about this before we got on, asking each other if we had tested it out. I have just a little bit. I'm going to ask Jaden what he's experienced on it. But, Jaden, first of all, I want to get your take on it, on just sort of, the news and what you've found. I'll tell you also what I've tested on and my favorite features about it, who's using it, what do you need it for, et cetera. But I just want to throw this grenade in as we're kind of getting started, which is I posted about it on LinkedIn, and the engagement on it was surprisingly low for what I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And the feedback I was sort of getting was, I'm not touching this toxic Elon trash, not trash about Grok, but just everything Elon talks. And it just occurred to me, you and I are so deep in this world that for me, I can kind of separate out my personal thoughts about Elon and what he is doing and an AI foundational model. And I'm finding a lot of people can't. So let me kick it over to you and take that where you want to.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. So overall, the things that there's a lot to unpack there, Connor. The first thing I'll say is your biggest platform is LinkedIn, and LinkedIn has a pretty heavy bias of people that are not on X, so that are still interested in tech but moved over there. They're not on X because they don't like Elon. So you'll definitely get more of that. I notice I get more of that when I talk about anything related to AI and Tesla or anything else. Like if it's on X, it's very positive towards those companies, and if it's on LinkedIn, usually negative. So I mean, there's that bias.
Sure.
But I do think that that is a thing. I mean, even yesterday I sent a picture to my wife because I was driving and there was a Tesla in front of me, and the license plate cover on the Tesla it just said F Elon. So, like there's people with very strong opinions. I mean, obviously they still had their Tesla because it's the best electric car, but like they're going to let you know they're not happy about. Yeah, anyways, it's fine. Yeah. So anyways, it's pretty funny. I love Shark Tank, but I don't love Mark Cuban. I'm not a huge fan of. So it's just like, what can you do, So you just got to kind of separate your politics from it. But in any case, as far as what Grok is able to do, and the reason why a lot of people are talking about it, I've played with it a bunch, and I've had mixed results. So I'll give my unbiased review on it in a second. But I just wanted to go through a couple of the heavy hitters, and the first one is just how it did on the benchmarks for math, science, and coding. Really, like it beat everybody. It beat OpenAI. It beat Anthropic. And to be honest, this is something that it kind of, there was a moment, I don't even know if it was last year or if it was like right after ChatGPT came out. There was a moment where Anthropic and OpenAI were really battling for the number one spot on the benchmarks. It feels like OpenAI kind of ran away from Anthropic and has kind of been run away for a while. And of course, I'm not even saying this to say Anthropic's toast, because if you talk to any coder today, I dare you, almost all of them that I talk to, and I see this on Twitter too, they're all using Claude. They're like,
100%.
And it's funny because I was talking to like my CTO for AI Box. I'm like, dude, you should check out Grok 3. Apparently it's really good at code. And he's like, oh, okay, fine, I'll do it. He's like, but honestly, at the end of the day, like even when these models are good, like OpenAI is way better for a lot of stuff. But he's like, when I'm like working with a developer and they're using ChatGPT for code instead of Claude, he's like, I know, like when they send me code, I can look at it and I already know what mistakes it's going to make, because I know like the mistakes that OpenAI always makes in our code base that Claude never makes. So it's really interesting. I do think that these models, like love it or hate it, are better for some things than other things. And maybe some people could argue like, oh, it's just like,
by the way,
and
by the way, Jaden, we should also mention that at the time of this recording, we're expecting a new model from Anthropic, and that has not dropped at the time of this recording too.
Yep, totally. So I mean, I'm holding my beta breath. And honestly, by the way, when that model drops from Anthropic, I'm sure my CTO is gonna be like, I told you, everyone else is trash, they're the best, whatever. It's funny. So, but the reason I do bring it up though is it feels like there was a battle for a while. OpenAI kind of ran away from it, and we didn't really see someone top them. I felt like we'd get people that would match them or right under them or just a sliver above. And according to the benchmarks, Grok is the first one that's like beat them by a bit on a bunch of benchmarks. And of course, OpenAI will come up with their new model and Claude's going to come up with their new model. But this felt like the first time I felt like on the benchmarks, I'm leapfrogged OpenAI by quite a bit. So that is what I've been most impressed with on this whole thing, which is really interesting. They showed some cool examples of it doing some code projects where essentially if you If you tell it to think extra long, it can do things like code projects, and they tell it like, hey, make this game that's like Pong and like Tetris, and it will just like generate these like games for you, which are really interesting. So it's quite impressive. It's significantly better than a lot of models. Who knows what
Hmm.
happens? The Elo score on Chatbot Arena, which is somewhere I use for benchmarking, like is crazy. And they're also saying it's going to get way better. But like apparently, it's it's significantly better. It's over a 1400 Elo score, which is like the all-time record. You're seeing like O1, or I guess like DeepSeek R1 is somewhere around like 1360 roughly. I don't know. So anyways, it is significantly better in a lot of places, and it's been a good tool. What have you used it, and I guess what have you seen from it in like the real world beyond just the benchmarks?
Yeah. So for me, this is kind of the question I have for everyone out there, really, which is, if you're using it, what are you using it for? Because it's a great foundation model. I mean, my guess, and I might be wrong on this, but I think Elon, first of all, just wanted to have his own foundation model,
Sure.
because I think that they're, first of all, because it's Elon and he wants to do that. Second of all, because, I mean, we can talk about AI being commoditized and everything like that, but you still don't want to, there's still going to be an expectation of how good intelligence is going to be. And there's going to be models that are better than other models. And Elon really needs this to own this supply chain. I mean, he has robots, he has cars, he has rocket ships and things like that. And to borrow from another great model would be very, very expensive. You know what I mean? Like, he obviously wouldn't
Yeah.
pay OpenAI. I can't even think of anybody that he's on good enough terms with where he'd want to pay them. So of course he's going to have this
Yeah.
foundation model. So that makes sense. I can also see how they're making the foundation model better and better because they just have tons of data just
Uh,
pouring in every day on X, which is, that's super valuable these days for companies, right? Because they keep talking about like, oh, we're running out of data on the internet, and that's, to an extent true, but to have this kind of constant river of data is pretty awesome. I don't know that it's going to make anybody use X more, Twitter more, just
mhm.
because you either like it or you don't like it. I happen to like it. I think that people who say, "Oh, it's so toxic," yeah, that's true. But everything is. I mean, it's like my Twitter feed is really tailored to just AI news and things like that, and certain sports and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's it. So the one cool thing I will say about a feature that I like on it, which is if I go on there, there's this is one of the things I posted about. It's now built into a Twitter post, so, or an X post, whatever. So it has like the little Grok logo on the right, and you can just hit it and it explains it live, which to me is awesome. So like, Andre Karpathy really digs it, and people tend to listen to him. But he was sort of saying some things that I'm like, okay, I don't totally understand what he's saying here, and I just click that. Or I have a lot of like science stuff just because I'm interested in it, and it would say like, oh, here's what they just discovered about supernovas, and I just click it and it explains it in real time, or it gives context. So if there's a news story that I don't understand why everybody's talking about this news story, you just click it and it gives you context. And then so again, if you can imagine kind of opening over on the right hand bar, it just opens this incredible bar of this stuff and then says like, do you have more questions about that? So in that regard, it's almost perfect, right,
Hmm.
Jaden? Because like what we always talk about is, and this is what you're trying to do with AI Box, I know, you want these tools to work in people's flow of work. You want it to be right into what they're doing, and it should be seamless and everything else. And I'm not sure that there's many better things. And I'm thinking, Microsoft with their AI built into the Office suite, Gemini built into Google, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure that just for this exact purpose, there's a better integration of an AI into the tool that you are using than how Grok is integrated into Twitter. It's a very
Yeah.
simple form. It's a very low bar, right? Because it's a very simple thing. It's just like explain this tweet, but it's kind of awesome. So I guess I can't really see myself kind of going in there and using it. Every once in a while, I go in and say like, "Hey, what's the latest news about this?" And I've said this before. I love how it's laid out. Like it gives you news posts, and then it gives you kind of tweets. Sort of, if you can imagine how Perplexity does it with just like news sites, it gives you both, and that's really fascinating. So I think it's really helpful and useful. I'm just wondering. I don't know that it's going to bring a lot of value to X. So I don't think more people are going to be using X. I don't
Hmm.
think. So this has to find a home outside of X2. So
I think
that's the thing I'm curious about.
Yep, I think you're 100% right about that, and I would argue that it is doing that. So for myself personally, I really, when they launched it on X, it's just not the place I go. Even
Right.
like using the llama on like all the meta apps, I just don't do that. I don't go to my social media and use AI. It's not where I go. So I was really happy when they made grok.com just like its own website. I don't have to like get distracted by an X post if I just want to do something. I do that. And I also have it on my phone. So currently I have the app on my phone, and
Hmm.
it makes it great. Interestingly enough, though, apparently it's just launched. You mentioned the AI feature, which I use for trending news all the time. I love reading the summaries at the top on X
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
uh, AI does. So that's good. I mean, you could use any AI model. I'm sure they have a good prompt that they use for it. But beyond that, apparently, Grok is number one on the App Store for free apps right now, which is pretty impressive with 37,000 reviews. So it's
Wow.
definitely far behind ChatGPT with 1.6 million reviews. ChatGPT obviously had the early leads, been around for a lot longer. Um, but as far as momentum goes, Grok is like it has a pretty. It's number one on the App Store right now. So obviously they have all these big pushes right now. So that's a lot of news kind of pushing it to the top. I do think that's interesting. I think if it's gonna win and if it's gonna stick, it's got to be an app on the App Store. That's where I use it. The thing that just happened 2 hours ago, Elon tweeted and said, "Try Grok voice mode and change the personality to whatever you want. It's awesome." The thing that's interesting about this to me is when they launched and they did their big live stream, they were like, this is only a few days ago, but they were like, okay, we got Grok 3 out. It's awesome. They showed all the demos. They're like, we were going to launch with voice mode, but it's a little spotty. So, like, give us maybe another couple weeks to, like, fix it. And then, like, I guess a few days later, they launched it. So,
Hmm.
cool. At the end of the day, it's going to be just like ChatGPT's voice mode, which is awesome. And because ChatGPT came out first, like they got a lot of buzz. I really hyped them up. It's really cool. I mean, and not a lot of people have been actually, no one other than OpenAI really has been able to do that dynamic voice yet
Yeah.
until they came along and did it. Like, so I think that's really impressive. But of course, I'm not going to say Grok is the greatest in the world because like they're doing something that OpenAI did first. They're doing it as well. That's cool. They are beating them in some benchmarks, so that seems to be surpassing. But it's not like they were the first ones that did those dynamic voices. So I'm not going to give them like the all the praise on that, but a ton of kudos for actually doing it. And the one other thing I do want to say before we jump to other things is I will give them some massive flowers for the fact that Anthropic is number two for a long time. And it seems like Grok XAI, with how much money they've raised in funding and their technology, is leapfrogging
Yeah.
Claude. I know people don't like to hear it. My CTO, number one because he loves it. But like voice mode, where's this on Claude? You know what I mean? They're pulling in
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. They do images in there, which Claude doesn't do. They do a lot more with search and like actually accessing the internet than Claude does. So it seems like Grok is making a lot. Is coming in hot for
Yeah.
for what they're building.
No, I think that's right. And sort of just to wrap this up, because I feel like we could actually talk about this a lot. First of all, if you're not watching on YouTube, you can see how Jaden is showing all these demonstrations and things like that. The other thing is that like it looked like from I was just watching Jaden's screen, and it looks like he's Elon's bragging about like real time updates. It's like, dude, like a lot of people have that now. It's like there's not a
Of
lot of knowledge
course.
cutoff issues these days. And again, time of recording, Claude does not have the new thing, so stay tuned. But yeah, if you can separate the man from the tech, do that. Test it out. I think it's well worth your time. And listen, thanks again for joining. As always, as usual, we would love it if you leave a rating and review, but also other things, right? Jaden has some incredible resources out there, folks. Like if you're looking to start a podcast in 2025, there's literally no other human that has built a better course with all his hacks to do that. And number two, you have to check out his school community. It is something that is blowing up. I cannot believe Jaden was showing me the numbers, which I'm not going to share. They're not mine to share, but holy smokes. And people are getting on there, and Jaden is sharing some really, really cool stuff on there that he's not sharing here or anywhere else. So check that out as well. We'll have links down below and everything else. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. We will see you next time.